Hi, so I'm Eilish Clohessy and I'm the Curator of Making at Derby Museums, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about two of our fantastic objects that we've got in the Gateway Gallery. So in the Gateway Gallery we've got two wonderful objects. One is a book by a gent called William Hutton, which is about the history of Derby, and then we've also got a letters copybook, which is from this mill and covers the dates from 1746 to 1749. So I'll talk a little bit about the book by William Hutton first. So William Hutton was born in Derby in 1723, and he had quite a long life, and he passed away in 1815, so he was about 90. He was a prolific author and wrote lots and lots of books, including a history of Derby and also a history of his own life, which have a little bit of a crossover. So William Hutton was employed at the silk mill at the age of 7, and he has a bit of a way of words when it comes to describing his time here. So I'll read a little bit of what he wrote. "To this curious but wretched place I was bound apprentice for 7 years, which I always considered the most unhappy of my life." So he was not a fan of working here. And at the age of 7, you would think definitely not, and definitely something that you would understand. So he was a historian in later life, but was originally apprenticed here to work on the machinery. So he would have been employed at the mill from about 1730, which is a little bit about 9 years after the mill was established. And so he's got a really good grasp of what working at the mill was like in his early years. And a lot of it is not very positive because it was a lot of calling under machinery and child labour, working with tying silk threads back together when they broke, so that the machinery could keep working. He writes about the founding of the silk mill and of the story of the Lum brothers, who were the founders of the site. But he wasn't there at the time. He was a small child when some of this was happening, but wasn't born at another point. So a lot of the stuff that he would have written would have been things that people had told him and things that had been passed on to him. So we do tend to take certain elements of the book with a pinch of salt. He talks a little bit about the alleged espionage and intrigue around the Lum brothers, and one of the brothers, John, going off to Italy and writing like sneaking into factories at night and writing records of how the machinery worked and diagrams, and then bringing them back here, and then being assassinated by an Italian woman, which we're not entirely sure is true. It's a good story, but it's something that has sort of evolved into something that is a good, great story, but not so much that something that we could prove. He was also he had a very good way of describing lots of different people that he worked with, and was quite sort of pithy. So it's very readable, even though it was published in the 1790s, but it's still something that you can read today. There's a copy of it available online if anyone's interested, and it's searchable as well. So you can, if you're interested in certain bits of the history of Derby, you can always find bits about that. The second thing that we've got in the same case is a letters copybook, which records the correspondence from Thomas Bennett, who was the manager of the silk mill, to William Wilson and Samuel Lloyd, who were acting for Richard Wilson, who were the owners of the silk mill at the time that the letter copybook was produced. So the letters copybook is pretty much like your sent box in your emails. It's a record of any letters that were sent from this mill mainly to the owners, but there is copies of other letters that were sent to other people involved in the running of the mill as well. It's really interesting. It tells about the goings on at the mill, where silk was coming from, where it was going to, and bits and pieces about how the town was running and what was happening in terms of general elections, who they thought was going to win, and who they thought was not going to be so successful. We've had it transcribed, which has just been fantastic, by some wonderful volunteers, and I got lost in it a little bit trying to research bits for this, and it tells stories of the silk coming from places like China and Verona in Italy, and also from the what was then the colony of Georgia in the USA, which is a really interesting story in and of itself. And we are working to see if we can get it online so people can read it themselves, because it is just a fantastic way of looking at Derby as a whole, and also just the factory and the goings on here.